You might believe that in a crime scene, every fingerprint, every drop of blood, every fiber leads us closer to truth. But what if that evidence was planted by those we trust to protect us? What if the crime scene is a lie? In this series, What If the Evidence Was Planted? We peel back layers of deception, confront contradictions, and raise a simple but unnerving question. When the evidence doesn't add up, can we still trust the system? Before we begin, a quick ask. Kindly tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you believe in justice, let your voice be heard. Now, let's begin. It was 10:42 p.m. on a cold November night. Detective Mark Collins stood outside the narrow office of Daryl Moore, watching paramedics roll out a covered stretcher. Inside, the once tidy workspace was chaos, papers scattered, drawers half open, and a faint smell of gunpowder clinging to the air. Daryl Moore was dead. A single bullet wound to the chest. No signs of struggle, no broken locks, no forced entry. On the surface, it looked like suicide. But then came the gun. A 9mm handgun was discovered in the alley behind the building, wiped clean, yet somehow bearing Daryl's fingerprints. The very next day, the case shifted from self-inflicted to murder. But here, the question that will haunt this story from start to finish. What if the evidence was planted? Daryl Moore wasn't famous, but in his small Chicago suburb, everyone knew his name. A successful construction manager, known for being precise, calm, and brutally honest. No criminal record, no enemies, at least none that anyone could name. He had been finalizing a $1 million project bid just days before his death. But those close to him said something felt off that week. He'd received anonymous emails threatening to stay away from the riverfront deal. He told a friend, "Someone wants to frame me for something." That statement would later send shockwaves through the courtroom. When forensics arrived, they found the following. One bullet lodged in Daryl's chest. A single spent casing beneath his desk. No gun in sight until Detective Collins discovered one outside in a nearby trash bin. Oddly, there were no footprints leading to that bin. And no fingerprints except Daryl on the weapon. It was almost too perfect. Too clean. The coroner confirmed he died between 9:50 and 10:00 p.m. Meaning whoever killed him had vanished within minutes. But the timeline didn't match what the surveillance showed, because the surveillance didn't show anything. Every camera in that corridor was conveniently offline between 9:40 p.m. and 10:10 p.m. A 30-minute blackout. Right when Daryl was killed. Detective Mark Collins, 17 years on the force, took immediate control of the investigation. He called it an open and shut case. But behind closed doors, other officers whispered that Collins had clashed with Daryl before, over an ethics complaint filed against the police department 6 months earlier. When questioned, Collins said he'd been nowhere near the building that night. Yet a street camera 2 blocks away captured a car, matching his unmarked sedan turning onto Daryl's street at 9:47 p.m. Still, no one confronted him. After all, Collins was one of their own. Daryl's younger sister, Rebecca Moore, refused to accept the official story. She told reporters, "My brother was being watched. He said he didn't feel safe." When detectives searched her home, they found a pair of latex gloves, similar to what the alleged killer might have worn. The gloves were clean, too clean. Still sealed in their packaging. Yet they became part of the prosecution's case as evidence of preparation. Rebecca was arrested for obstruction, then released without charge. But the damage was done. Her name was now tied to her brother's murder. And that's when she began her own investigation. Weeks later, a private forensic consultant named David Harlan joined the case at Rebecca's request. He examined the evidence, custody logs, the fingerprint analysis, and most importantly, the crime scene photos that were never released to the public. Something caught his attention. The gun retrieved from the trash had been photographed inside the office hours before it was officially found outside. The timestamps didn't match the official report, which meant either the time was falsified or the gun had been moved after being logged. Harlan's words to Rebecca were chilling. Someone didn't just mess up this investigation, they built it. Meanwhile, investigative journalist Naomi Perez began digging into Detective Collins' past. She found 3 prior complaints of evidence mishandling, 2 of which were quietly dismissed. She also found a pattern. Every case Collins solved quickly involved missing camera footage, late-night evidence entries, and unusually fast convictions. Then Naomi received an anonymous flash drive in the mail. It contained internal police memos dated 2 days before Daryl's death, mentioning his name, the word surveillance review, and a cryptic note. If he talks, the deal dies. At this point, even the department began to fracture. Officers who once trusted Collins started doubting his integrity. Rebecca's lawyer filed for a reinvestigation, demanding access to all forensic records. But the request was denied on grounds of chain of custody integrity. And then something unbelievable happened. Late one night, Harlan, the forensic expert, received a call from a lab technician at the city's evidence storage center. The technician whispered, "You were right. That gun, there's a second set of prints beneath Daryl's. We just found them under UV light." Before Harlan could respond, the call cut off. The next morning, that technician was reported missing. Rebecca arrives at Harlan's office, trembling, holding an envelope she found slipped under her door. Inside is a single photograph, grainy, low light, showing Detective Mark Collins standing beside Daryl's office window at 9:51 p.m. Time-stamped, dated the night of the murder. But the photograph's origin is anonymous. Who took it? Why send it now? And what happened to the missing technician? The truth, it seems, is being buried one person at a time. Rebecca Moore sat in her car, the photograph trembling in her hands. The timestamp read 9:51 p.m., the same minute her brother was shot. She zoomed in. The grainy image showed Collins' profile, unmistakable, illuminated by the faint blue glow of his police-issue phone. Behind him, the light from Daryl's office window spilled across the pavement. But something else caught her eye. A shadow beside him, smaller, hunched, barely visible. Someone else was there. Rebecca drove straight to Harlan's office. He examined the photo carefully and said quietly, "This wasn't taken from across the street. It was taken from above, maybe from another building's CCTV. But whoever sent it had access to surveillance that was supposed to be deleted." 2 days passed with no word from Elliot Kane, the lab technician. When police searched his apartment, his laptop was missing, his phone left charging by the bed. Neighbors said he'd left late the night before, following a call from an unknown number. That same night, the city's evidence storage logs showed an unauthorized access attempt at 11:43 p.m. Someone had tried to open the locker containing the Moore case firearm, but failed. When Harlan asked to review the CCTV of the storage room, the officer in charge said, "Footage is unavailable, system rebooted at midnight." Another coincidence. Another 30-minute blackout. Investigative journalist Naomi Perez wasn't buying the official silence. She confronted the precinct's spokesperson, live on air. How does a lab tech vanish days after finding new fingerprints on a murder weapon? How does the lead detective appear in a photo from the crime scene he swore he never visited? Her broadcast went viral overnight. By morning, the department announced an internal review, but Detective Collins remained on duty. Meanwhile, Naomi received another anonymous email. If you want proof, check Locker 47 before it's gone. Locker 47 belonged to the city's evidence holding area. Inside, she found a small flash drive taped beneath a clipboard. When she plugged it in, her screen displayed 3 words. He never worked alone. The flash drive contained partial video, heavily corrupted, showing a dim corridor, a man in gloves carrying a sealed evidence bag marked Moore-01. He placed it on a table, opened it, and wiped the gun's handle with a white cloth. The camera angle never revealed his face, but his badge glinted under the fluorescent light. Freeze frame revealed the badge number, 3127. Harlan cross-checked the database. It belonged to Detective Frank Ruiz, Collins' longtime partner. But Ruiz had retired 2 weeks before Daryl's murder. So how did his badge appear at the evidence room after his retirement? Rebecca's trust in the system evaporated. She started recording every conversation, every meeting. Late one night, she received a voicemail, distorted male voice, whispering, "He didn't kill your brother, but he knows who did. Meet me by the pier, 2 a.m. Against Harlan's warnings, she went. Rain poured. A lone figure stood by the edge of the dock, face hidden under a hoodie. He handed her a flash drive and said, "Don't trust Collins, don't trust Harlan either." Then footsteps, someone running. 2 gunshots echoed through the pier. When Rebecca looked up, the man was gone. Only his phone remained, cracked screen glowing with a single message draft. They planted it twice. Back at Harlan's office, Rebecca and Naomi examined the new flash drive. Inside were raw forensic reports, unedited. The original fingerprint analysis clearly listed 2 partial prints on the gun's barrel. Daryl Moore, unknown female. The copy filed to court had that second line erased. Naomi checked the embedded metadata. The report was last edited from a police login, M. Collins, ID 97. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Harlan whispered, "That's impossible." He swore he never touched those files. Before they could react, the lights in the office flickered. Through the window, headlights flashed once, then again. Someone was watching them from the street. Glass rained down across Harlan's desk. Rebecca dropped to the floor, covering her head as Naomi screamed for help. The air smelled of gunpowder and dust. Harlan lay motionless, a dark stain spreading across his shirt. Rebecca crawled toward him, trembling. "David, stay with me, please." His lips moved faintly, whispering, "Locker 47, again." Then his eyes closed. Sirens wailed in the distance, but by the time police arrived, the shooter was gone. No shell casings, no witnesses. And the security cameras. Offline again. Detective Mark Collins arrived minutes later. He looked genuinely shocked, or maybe he was just pretending. He told officers, "I warned Harlan not to interfere in an active case. This is what happens when people play detective." Naomi snapped back. "You mean when they find the truth you buried?" Collins glared at her, then whispered something to another officer. Moments later, both Rebecca and Naomi were asked to leave the scene. Outside in the rain, Rebecca muttered, "He's cleaning this up, again." Back at her apartment, Naomi opened her laptop. The email that had arrived right before the gunshot, still unread. The subject, "Stop digging." The message itself was empty, except for one attachment, a short 8-second video. In it, a gloved hand places a drive labeled Moore case into an envelope. Then a voice off-camera says, "Deliver to MC, priority." Naomi froze. MC Mark Collins. Someone else was feeding him evidence or feeding him lies. She replayed the clip and noticed something small, a corner of a calendar behind the hand. It showed the date, November 10th, 2 days before Daryl Moore's murder. Rebecca couldn't shake Harlan's last words, "Locker 47, again." So she and Naomi returned to the evidence facility. At midnight, with a borrowed keycard from a sympathetic officer, they entered the dark corridor of lockers. Locker 47 sat at the far end, sealed with yellow tape. Rebecca broke it open. Inside, nothing. Just dust and a single folded note taped to the back wall. Naomi unfolded it and read aloud. "Not this one, try where he hid her." Rebecca frowned. "Her who?" A sudden click echoed, footsteps. A flashlight beam swept across the floor. Security had arrived. They ran, barely escaping through a side exit. Back in Naomi's car, they examined the note under UV light. Invisible ink revealed coordinates scribbled faintly beneath the words. The location pointed to an abandoned field lab on the outskirts of the city, a place once used by the forensic department years ago. Rebecca whispered, "He hid something or someone there." When they reached the site, the building looked dead. Broken windows, rusted doors, silence. Inside, amid the dust and old computers, they found a storage locker marked Moore Supplemental. Inside were old photos of Daryl Moore with a woman Rebecca didn't recognize. A lab ID hung around her neck, Dr. Alyssa Hartman. A search revealed Dr. Hartman had worked at the city forensic lab until she resigned abruptly 3 days after Daryl's death. No one knew where she went. But an old voicemail on the lab's answering machine, dated a week later, said, "This is Dr. Hartman. I'm done running. I know the evidence was switched, but if I talk, I'm next." Her address file was deleted from the city records, replaced with the phrase "Protected ID, MC order." Mark Collins had personally sealed her identity. Naomi turned to Rebecca. "He's not just hiding the truth. He's hiding her, the one person who could prove your brother was framed." As they drove away, Rebecca's phone buzzed. Unknown number. One new message. "Stop searching for Hartman, she's already dead." Attached was a photograph, a dark image of a woman's hand lying beside a hospital bed tag. The tag read, "E. Hartman, DOA, 11:42 p.m. But Naomi noticed something. The timestamp on the photo was today, meaning whoever sent it took it hours ago. The next night, the rain refused to stop. Thunder rolled above the silent streets as Rebecca stood at her window, staring at the clock. 8:42 p.m. Naomi begged her not to go. "You think this is about answers? It's a setup. That's what traps look like, bait wrapped in grief." Rebecca whispered, "They've killed everyone who got close. I can't hide anymore. If this is the only way to end it, then so be it." She left her phone on the kitchen table, recording. Then she walked into the storm. The old Riverside train depot was a graveyard of rust and shadows. Half-collapsed warehouses, abandoned carriages, weeds growing through cracked concrete. Rebecca's flashlight beam flickered across the fog. She followed the sound of dripping water until she saw a faint light inside an old office cabin. A man's silhouette waited by the window. He turned slowly, and Rebecca froze. Detective Ruiz. The retired detective, the same whose badge number had been linked to the evidence room video, stood before her, older, thinner, eyes haunted. He raised his hands slightly. "You were never supposed to find me." Ruiz spoke in a trembling voice. "I didn't kill your brother, Rebecca, but I helped them frame him. Collins was the one who led it. He said Daryl was about to expose a fraud ring inside the department, fake evidence, staged arrests, overtime payouts for cases that never existed." He looked away, ashamed. Collins planted the gun himself. He wiped it and used Daryl's old prints from the station file. I knew it was wrong, but they told me if I spoke, I'd lose everything. Rebecca's breath caught. Who they? Ruiz hesitated, eyes darting toward the door. Not just him, there's someone higher, someone protecting him. He stepped closer, whispering. Hartman wasn't supposed to die. She had proof, real proof. Collins sent someone after her, someone from inside the lab. Then, from outside, came the metallic clank of a door shutting. Ruiz froze. They found us. A black SUV rolled quietly into the yard, headlights off. Rebecca ducked behind a stack of crates, Ruiz beside her. Two figures emerged, both in tactical jackets, faces masked. One carried a silenced weapon. The other pulled out a radio and muttered. Target confirmed, the girl's here. Ruiz whispered. I'll distract them, you run. Before Rebecca could stop him, he stepped out from behind the crates. Collins, you don't have to do this. A gunshot echoed, sharp final. Ruiz fell. Rebecca ran toward the fence as bullets struck the metal around her. She tripped, scraping her hands on the gravel, and crawled under an old rail car. The men searched, flashlights sweeping past her trembling form. Finally, one of them spoke quietly into the radio. No visual, she's gone. They left. Rebecca waited until the yard was silent again. Then she crawled out, shaking, covered in mud and rain. Ruiz's body lay still by the office window, his jacket pocket half open. Inside, she found a USB drive, wrapped in plastic. On it, the same initials she'd seen before, MC. She clutched it tightly and whispered, "Not this time." She staggered toward the road, flagged a passing truck, and vanished into the night. Hours later, Naomi sat waiting in her car, watching Rebecca's empty driveway. It was nearly 2 a.m. when a delivery rider stopped and dropped off a small envelope at her door. No return address. Inside, the USB drive, wrapped in a blood-stained handkerchief. And a note in Ruiz's handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm gone. The files on this drive are everything we covered up. Don't trust the department. Don't trust anyone named Collins. Naomi's hands shook as she plugged it into her laptop. Hundreds of files appeared, scanned documents, case photos, internal memos. And one video labeled, Evidence Transfer Collins, MP4. Naomi's screen flickered wildly. Lines of code scrolled faster than she could read. Every folder on the USB began disappearing, one after another. No, stop, she cried, slamming the laptop shut. But when she tried to restart it, the screen only flashed, system locked. Her phone buzzed seconds later. An unknown number. She answered with trembling hands. Voice, you shouldn't have opened that file, Ms. Ward. Naomi, who is this? Voice, you've been looking for the truth. Now it's looking back. Then the line went dead. Naomi bolted to the window. A dark sedan idled across the street, lights off, engine humming softly. The same car that had tailed Rebecca 2 nights ago. Her pulse raised. She grabbed the USB and ran out the back door into the rain. Naomi knew one person who could help, Alex Cho, a cybersecurity expert who once worked for the city's digital forensics unit before he quit under mysterious circumstances. She found him at his cluttered apartment, surrounded by half-dismantled computers. Alex, you shouldn't have come here. They track metadata, traffic, cell towers, everything. Naomi, they're deleting the files as we speak. This drive, it's proof that Detective Collins planted evidence in multiple cases. Alex, let me see it. He examined the USB with a magnifier. There's an embedded kill switch. Whoever sent this knew it was compromised, but if I can isolate the ghost partition, I might recover fragments. Minutes turned to hours as the screens flickered with raw data, error codes, and corrupted thumbnails. Then Alex stopped. Wait, I found something, hidden under an encrypted subfolder. He clicked. A single image appeared. A photograph dated March 12, 2018. It showed Detective Collins in the evidence room, shaking hands with someone wearing a dark suit. The file name read, Chief Transfer Operation. Naomi leaned in. That's him, the chief of police. Before they could react, Alex's phone buzzed. He stared at the caller ID, his old department. Alex, they never call me, not since I leaked those audit files. He answered cautiously. A female voice spoke, calm and clear. Mr. Cho, we know you're with Naomi Ward. You have something that belongs to the department. If you value your safety and hers, drop it off at the 7th Precinct parking lot. In 30 minutes. The line clicked off. Alex looked terrified. They know we are here. The lights in the apartment flickered. Then blackout. Only the glow of the computer screens remained for a split second before everything went dark. From outside came the sound of footsteps. Alex grabbed a flashlight and whispered, "Back exit now." They crept through the narrow corridor as flashlights swept past the windows. The sound of boots. Radios crackling. Team 2, they're in the building. Naomi and Alex ran into the alley, slipping in the rain. A van pulled up at the other end, headlights cutting through the fog. Alex, this way. He led her through a broken fence into an underground parking structure. There behind a rusted steel door was a hidden room, a bunker lined with old drives, routers, and monitors. Naomi, what is this place? Alex, insurance, for people like us who find things we're not supposed to. He plugged the USB into a secure offline system. Let's see what's left. On the screen, fragments of deleted files slowly reappeared, half-broken images, unfinished memos, old reports. Then one file loaded completely. Document name, Evidence Relocation Log, March 14, 2018. It contained a list of altered exhibits from various criminal cases. Weapons, blood samples, DNA swabs, each tagged with initials. And next to most of them, a single word, modified. Naomi's eyes widened as she scrolled. They didn't just plant evidence on Daryl Harlan. They've done this for years, dozens of cases, maybe hundreds. Alex frowned. Look at the header. It's signed off by 2 officers, Collins and someone named A. Beck. Naomi froze. Wait, Beck, that's Assistant District Attorney Aaron Beck. He's the one who handled Daryl's prosecution. The pieces started to fit. The police planted the evidence. The prosecutors buried the truth. And the chief, he made sure no one ever found out. Naomi took a deep breath. We need to get this to Rebecca. She deserves to know what her brother died for. But when Alex turned, Naomi noticed something, his computer screen flashing, uploading 72%. Naomi, what are you doing? Alex, backing it up to a secure node. We need multiple copies. Naomi, that's not a local server, that's a city database. You're sending it directly to them. Alex's face shifted, guilt, fear, and something darker. Alex, you don't understand, Naomi. They have my sister. I didn't have a choice. Naomi stepped back, voice trembling. You were with them this whole time. Before she could run, a voice came through Alex's radio. Nice work, Cho. Stand by for pickup. Naomi's heart dropped. She turned toward the door, but it burst open. Armed officers flooded in. Collins stepped out of the shadows, calm and smiling. We meet again, Ms. Ward. He looked at the USB still in her hand. You should have deleted that when you had the chance. Naomi clenched her fists as he nodded to the others. Take her, she's coming with us. Naomi woke to a blinding light. Her wrists were tied to a metal chair. The air smelled like disinfectant and fear. A steel door creaked open, and Detective Collins stepped in, holding a cup of coffee like he was in his office. Collins, good morning, Ms. Ward. You've caused quite a storm. Naomi, where am I? Collins, a holding facility, off the books. Think of it as damage control. He set a folder on the table and opened it. Photos of her, Rebecca, Ruiz, and the USB drive. Collins, you've been busy, but the problem with chasing ghosts, Naomi, is sometimes they chase back. He leaned close. You think the truth will set you free. The truth gets buried with the ones who dig too deep. Naomi's voice trembled. You killed David, you killed Hartman, and you framed Darryl. Collins smiled. Framed, no, we simply made sure the evidence pointed in the right direction. Justice, after all, is about perception. While Collins was busy with Naomi, somewhere in the city, Rebecca wasn't dead. She lay in a motel room, bandaged, bleeding from a graze wound. Ruiz's bullet meant for her had only clipped her shoulder. Her phone vibrated weakly. Unknown number. She answered. A weak, robotic voice came through, modulated, scrambled. Rebecca Harlan, if you want your friend back, find the file named Project Halo in your brother's old storage locker. You have 12 hours. The line went dead. Rebecca stared at herself in the mirror, pale, exhausted, but burning with determination. They took everyone from me, not this time. She grabbed her jacket, pocketed her brother's photo, and stepped into the rain. The locker was hidden beneath the old West Bridge storage complex, a place long abandoned. Rebecca found her brother's unit, number 47, half covered in cobwebs. Inside were dusty boxes of files, newspaper clippings, and one metal briefcase. When she opened it, a single hard drive rested inside. Labeled Project Halo Confidential. She plugged it into her laptop. Inside were folders, video logs, autopsy photos, chain of custody records, all tied to altered police evidence. But there was one folder named Authorized Personnel Only. When she clicked it, a password prompt appeared. The hint read, her last breaths. Rebecca froze. She whispered Hartman and typed the name. The files unlocked. And what she saw changed everything. A secret task force created by the chief and Ada Beck named Project Halo. Its purpose? To manipulate forensic data to ensure case convictions, control narrative outcomes, and maintain public trust. Rebecca gasped. They weren't just planting evidence, they were building false justice. Back in the black site, Naomi was being questioned again, this time by Ada Beck himself. He circled her slowly. Beck, you think you're doing the right thing, but tell me, Ms. Ward, how many lives are better because of the cases we fixed? We made monsters disappear. Isn't that what the public wants? Naomi glared. You're not fixing justice, you're fabricating it. Beck smiled coldly. Semantics. The door suddenly buzzed. An officer rushed in, whispering something. Beck frowned, then turned to Naomi. Seems your friend Rebecca doesn't know when to stay dead. Naomi's eyes widened. She's alive. Beck, not for long. Rebecca uploaded the Project Halo files to a private network, sending copies to journalists, lawyers, and internal affairs. As she watched the upload bar climb, she heard sirens in the distance, getting closer. She whispered, You planted your truth for years. Let's see how it feels to have the real one planted back. Then her phone rang. Naomi's voice, weak, shaky, coming from a line she shouldn't have access to. Naomi, Rebecca, they know where you are. Don't let them take that drive. Rebecca, I'm not running anymore. The door slammed open. Collins entered, gun drawn. Collins, you just couldn't stop digging, could you? Rebecca, and you couldn't stop lying. She hit enter. The upload reached 100% seconds before Collins fired. Federal agents swarmed the city by dawn. News anchors whispered about Project Halo, forged evidence, and internal corruption at the highest levels. Detective Collins was missing. Ada Beck was in custody. The chief had vanished. And in the chaos, no one could find Rebecca Harlan. Naomi sat in an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the flashing red lights outside the black site. A young officer approached her. "Ma'am, we found this on one of the drives. It's addressed to you." He handed her a small flash drive labeled simply, "Final Evidence." Naomi's hands shook. She plugged it into a tablet, and Rebecca's voice filled the air. Rebecca recorded. "Naomi, if you're hearing this, I didn't make it out, but I uploaded everything. The files, the footage, it's all online. Collins and Beck can't bury this anymore. Truth doesn't die in silence, it multiplies." Naomi's tears fell as she whispered, "You did it, Rebecca, you actually did it." 3 days later, an anonymous video surfaced online. A man's voice, distorted but familiar, spoke. "You think you've won. But remember, someone has to control the story. I only planted the evidence you wanted to believe." The screen flashed, revealing Collins' badge number. Naomi stared at it from her laptop, whispering, "He's still out there." A new commission was formed to rebuild the city's Justice Department. Dozens of wrongfully convicted inmates were released. Project Halo became a symbol not of victory, but of warning. Naomi started a nonprofit called the Darrell Foundation, in honor of Rebecca's brother, dedicated to exposing wrongful convictions and tampered evidence. At the foundation's opening, she spoke softly to the crowd. "My friend once told me, the truth doesn't hide, people do. So today, we stop hiding." Applause filled the room. But as she stepped down, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. The message read, "We need to talk about Collins, he's not done." And attached a photo. It showed a man in a baseball cap, standing at a train platform. In his hand, Rebecca's locket. Naomi's eyes widened. No, it can't be. Naomi drove to the same train yard where it all began. Rain poured again, like the night Rebecca disappeared. In the distance, she saw him, Collins, older, weary, but alive. "Naomi, you can't run from the truth forever." "Collins, I'm not running, I'm evolving." He tossed the locket to her feet. "You wanted answers? Ask yourself why the files stopped at the chief. Who do you think authorized him?" Naomi froze. "You mean?" Collins smiled faintly. "Justice isn't broken, Ms. Ward. It's designed this way." Before she could reply, headlights appeared, black cars surrounding them. Agents poured out, shouting commands. Collins raised his hands and whispered, "Looks like I've been framed this time." Then, as officers closed in, he smirked one last time. What if the evidence was planted again? He was dragged away. The rain fell harder. And Naomi stood alone, the echo of his words haunting the air. Naomi's voice narrates over footage of empty courtrooms, files being shredded, and Rebecca's smiling photo. "They said the truth would set us free. But sometimes it burns everything in its path before it does. We lost good people, brave ones. But their voices live on in the evidence that couldn't be erased. Because every lie leaves a fingerprint. And every truth, no matter how buried, eventually finds daylight." Thank you for watching What If the Evidence Was Planted? Crimes That Don't Add Up. Kindly tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping true crime stories that question everything you thought you knew. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing about the truth is how close it gets.